We start with China's economic performance. The country says its GDP has expanded 9.8% annually to 28 trillion yuan. That's about 12 trillion US dollars in the first 3 quarters of this year. Authorities made the announcement at a press conference on Monday in Beijing. Economic growth in the third quarter stood at 4.9%. For more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Sun Tianyuan in Beijing. Tianyuan, you've been following this very closely throughout Monday morning, so tell us more about China's economic momentum.
Yes, Pandeng, China's GDP actually reached more than 82 trillion yuan, or about 12.8 trillion US dollars in the first 3 quarters of this year, and that's a 9.8% year-on-year increase. Now, breaking down the numbers quarter to quarter, you will see that they fell from over 18% in the first quarter to about 5% in the third. So Fu Linghui, a spokesperson of the National Bureau of Statistics, says the overall performance is within expectation, and he said the national economy has sustained its recovery and development with all major macroeconomic indicators over the last 9 months, despite complicated factors at home and abroad, such as the pandemic. Even so, the total value of imports and exports of goods reached over 28 trillion yuan, which is nearly 23% up compared to that of 2020. The spokesperson also says China has maintained a steady progress in high-quality development, especially in high-tech sectors. A closer look at the industrial production in the first 3 quarters shows the total value added of the high-tech manufacturing went up by 20%. We've seen a 172% surge in the production of new energy vehicles. The investment in high-tech industry also grew nearly 19% year-on-year. So Fu says the Chinese economy has shown great resilience and vitality despite the impact of the global pandemic and floods at home. And the people have also had stable employment and increased income, but there are still global uncertainties and uneven recovery at home. Fu says the country is expected to fulfill this year's major targets and tasks for economic and social development. Back to you, Pandeng.
Thank you very much, our reporter Sun Tianyuan in Beijing. Now, for more insights, we're joined in the studio by Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics. So, Professor, looking at the big picture, the National Bureau of Statistics has made it very clear that the whole Chinese economy is still in recovery mode. But as our reporter just mentioned, the growth rate from the third quarter this year doesn't exactly make it as high as the first 2 quarters. What's causing this? Is it the pandemic or a larger global shift?
I noticed there is an increasing pessimistic prediction over the Chinese economy because economics used to rely on regressional statistics. From the first quarter, 18.3, second quarter, 7.9, and now 4.9%. It seems that we are really on a downhill slope. However, we do see that the average of the 3 quarters add up together show up to 9.8%, which is a stellar performance, particularly against the backdrop of the pandemic and also against the backdrop of global decline. So it shows that we still have a very strong confidence because we do not really want to throw in a massive stimulus package as some of the Western countries have implemented, and also that we trust that the long-term goal shall not be lost sight for high-quality growth and also higher living standard by stamping out a number of pollutant industries, which is contributing to the GDP immediately, but also may run counter to the long-term goal of the Chinese sustainable development. So this is really a very much a balanced approach. I'm still seeing a good picture of China, with the CPI below 1% growth and with the employment below 5% growth. So therefore, what is really the worry?
Right. So if you're still optimistic about the momentum, but you just what about that backdrop you just mentioned, global decline? Do you think China will face more challenges against this backdrop in the near future? For example, the fourth quarter and even the beginning of next year.
Well, the global forecasts have really trimmed down their a little rosy picture about the overall performance for the global economy because of the resurgence of the COVID variants. And that is really a mixed picture for China because, you know, some of the competing countries, they lose the market that China can really fill in because we operate a very successful program to maintain the economic recovery, and migrating workers are almost in full employment in the coastal regions. So therefore, our export drive is still there to fill the gap. And the other is that because of the gloomy outlook, the buying power in the larger trading partners may really shrink to quite an extent. That is going to dampen the Chinese export momentum. On the other hand, the surge in the global energy prices is really giving a good push to the Chinese statistics because the value is increasing, but also that's quite a pressure on the Chinese manufacturing industry, particularly when they are really being cornered and pushed along both fronts. So from the upstream and also the downstream. So therefore, I could see that it's going to be a difficult time, but the resilience and also the stability is still there, and there is not really a good reason to tell a very pessimistic picture about our next quarter.
Right, so we've talked a lot about the big picture, but what about the people's confidence in China? What do you make of the latest CPI figures? And also for a tiny detail, maybe, we saw that in the first 3 quarters this year, the pork price has dropped by 38%. Quite good news to daily consumers, right?
Absolutely. We can see that on the street. There is also a structural reflection of what is really happening in the upstream, which is the PMI. And the PMI has really surged a great deal, but they are able to manage to constrain the dispersion into the consumer side. One reason is that because they are trimming off their profit, and the other is that they are able to export to a major destination so that they do not really translate a inflationary pressure onto the end consumer. And also that we can see, despite of the disaster happen in a number of areas in China, we still are really ushering a bumper harvest, as our statisticians have told us. And the Chinese rural revitalization program is also taking effect. After the poverty alleviation, the infrastructure development, irrigation system are more in place to help to gain the confidence, because we always say food is heaven for China. When the food price and the pork price are really getting stabilized, and people will have less worry about the future, and plus that the social benefit program is translating across China, particularly in those rural areas. We can see that the rural consumption rate is even higher than the urban areas, so which is also seeing a good sign of the Chinese shared prosperity that is also already taking shape.
Thank you very much, Professor Liu Baocheng there.